Hello everyone. This video is about the flaws within the Black community and how we can fix it. Well, the first issue within the Black community is maybe Stockholm Syndrome. And the reason why I say Stockholm Syndrome is because in modern day society, a lot of people of African descent, we are not taught anything about our culture, our heritage, our creed. And when we see art, when we see models, when we watch movies or any representation of human beings, we don't see our faces. We see the faces of other races. So a lot of the times, us Black people, regardless of what country or continent we're from, we grow up with a sense of not knowing who we are, our identity. And so a lot of the times we conform to someone else's perception of what they feel our identity should be. And we don't necessarily have anything, we're not given anything to go off of as far as our people are concerned. And a lot of times, when we grow up, we don't really have healthy role models that are Black people. We don't really have that. And when we do have role models, they're not healthy, So the Stockholm Syndrome, at least in my case, according to my opinion, where the Stockholm Syndrome comes in within the Black community is lack of knowledge of self and self-hatred. And self-hatred, a lot of times that comes in because of our childhood traumas, like what we have to experience with our parents, our families, our friends when we go to school, like our friends that we grow up with. And self-hatred is created a lot of times from abuse and unfortunate circumstances, on top of the fact that we don't really have very many Black role models that are heavily announced in the media. Not very many. And if we do have any healthy or positive role models, how many can you name on 10 fingers that have lived past 50? Any Black role models in the past 100, any positive Black role models within the past 100 years, for the past century, how many names can we name of Black people that were positive, that lived past the age of 50? On 10 fingers, or just one hand alone. I can't name it. I can't name very many. And that's saying something. So that's where the Stockholm Syndrome comes in. We don't have very many healthy role models. And, sometimes our parents aren't necessarily able to be healthy role models because a lot of Black people we grow up in ghettos, what they call ghettos. The same neighborhoods, the same projects that they called certain neighborhoods, or low budgeted neighborhoods in Europe. That's the same neighborhoods that they refer to as, where the Jews were staying, ghettos. It's no different, just a different country. So we Black people were born and raised in these ghettos, and a lot of the times we're not really given a fair chance at succeeding as other races of people because we're born in the ghettos, we're born in the projects, and we don't have the money nor the resources to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. So, the second issue within the Black community is pathological envy. Now, coming from an unbiased point of view, I actually understand why um, we black people can be jealous of each other. I mean, put in my mindset, you know, in the body of a black person, male or female, who has had less than I did, less than, the poorest person that we know, they had less than growing up. And you take away certain opportunities and advantages that we all have had the pleasure of experiencing. You take that away from us, and you take away our careers, if you take away our income, if you take away our I guess our dietary intake, meaning that there's far less food supplies. If there's any which way you can break a person, right? Put yourself in the shoes of a black person who's been through all of that, on top of the systematic oppression and the racism that we face here. Okay, we put ourselves in the position of the poorest black person that has had absolutely no privilege of no kind. Bad luck, crappy luck. No matter how many times they try to lift themselves up by their bootstraps, they seem to always trip. And then next thing you know, that unfortunate fellow runs into another black man who seems to have had it made ever since he or she was a child. Everything handed to them. Anything they wanted, they got. Anything they need, they didn't have to ask for. They just had it made. And they're walking around confident, smiling, successful, and you get this, unlucky fellow over here who's had the short end of the stick their whole life. Anyone can understand why the unfortunate fellow is jealous of the other one. Because it's like, well, how come I didn't get the chance to have that privilege? How come I didn't get the chance to do what I want? How come I didn't get the chance to get what I needed without having to ask for it? How come I didn't get the chance to have whatever I want when I ask for it? Why is it that every single day I try to do this and that, I can't get where I need to be, but this person seems to be manifesting it just by the snap of their fingers? Anyone can understand that. Looking at it from the outside in, anyone can understand the jealousy. I understand it, and I've been in both their shoes. So the pathological envy within the black community, we have to understand. We have to put ourselves in the shoes of both people involved. And we also have to put ourselves in a position to look at the situation from a bird's eye view. Pointing fingers, judging each other, it's not really doing us any good. What good has disrespecting each other, name calling, and putting each other down done? For the black community personally, what has that done for your family? What has that done for your legacy? I know it's done nothing for me and mine. Pointing fingers at another black person, hating on them, putting them down because they're doing better than me, it's done nothing for me. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I can't think of not one benefit that came of putting down a fellow black person for doing better than me. And so until we as a black community learn that putting each other down is not going to get us anywhere, and it's not going to manifest any money, it's not going to put any additional zeros on the check. It's not going to put no money in the wallet. As soon as we understand that, I believe that the more likely we are, the less likely we are, to hate on another person. Especially if we find out what they had to go through in order to get where they're at, or what their family had to go through to get where they're at, or if we listen to each other's stories. I believe that it'll put us in a position to not be so judgmental of one another, and not to think that someone just has it made because they look good. or you feel like they look good, so they got it made, and they never had to struggle a day in their life. We as Black people, we have to stop judging each other, and we have to listen to each other's stories. We can't be so quick to point the finger all the time at each other. Instead, we need to just listen. It's that simple. And that'll stop the envy. I mean, I feel like it'll stop it for the most part, but that's from within. I mean, I can't tell somebody to not be envious of another person. But what I can say is listen to this person's backstory and see if your opinion won't change. Listen to what this person had to go through, and maybe you may feel a little different. That's all I have to say on that. Envy is something that it's an internal battle that whatever individual is experiencing envy is going to have to check on their own, unfortunately. But if we all look within and then we walk a mile in someone else's shoes, I think that could put a stop to that. And it's just that simple. It's not always easy to do because, we don't want to. A lot of times our ego gets in the way and we get, we get caught up in our thoughts and set in our ways, but it really is as simple as walking a mile in someone else's shoes and understanding, well, why they are the way they are. It's that simple. We have to stop pointing the finger and stop accusing each other and putting each other down and just listen to one another. And I believe that will bring about understanding. And when there is a mutual understanding and a mutual respect, it can put an end to any misunderstanding, which could hence clear up any unnecessary envy or jealousy that's involved. Okay, so I said Stockholm Syndrome was the first one. Pathological envy is the second one. And then the third one, the third issue within the Black community is the crab in the bucket mentality. The crab in the bucket mentality within the Black community specifically. I think, honestly, aside from the Stockholm Syndrome, that is probably the number one, dream killer in the Black community is the crabs in the bucket. Us sabotaging each other so that we can all sulk in misery when I don't really see how from a logical standpoint, how that benefits anybody. Not even the people who are dragging others down. You have to understand that, as Black people, when we go around sabotaging each other, a lot of times we're not thinking about how that looks to other people or how it looks to our children, how it looks to our legacy when we sabotage each other's growth and success. A lot of times I understand how sometimes we get caught up in our emotions and we're not necessarily thinking about the consequences, and we're not thinking about how this looks to other people, to the spirit realm, to the creator, looking down at us, acting a fool towards each other, towards our own bloodline. I mean, how does that look? When we start letting things like that sink in, I personally believe that we won't be so quick to attack one another. If we know how bad we look when we attack each other, I believe that it will increase the likelihood of putting a stop to us having that crab in the barrel mentality. If we are able to self-reflect or get another perspective on how we are behaving, may not change things right away, but I definitely do believe that it will bring about perspective, for sure. Excuse me. Because we have to look at it from a standpoint of another race. If one is, say, a white person or a Hispanic or Indian, somebody that's not Black, you have to look at it from the standpoint of survival. Say this particular non-Black person owns a business. right? And they have family to feed. They have a will. They have a legacy that they're leaving behind for, say, their grandchildren, great grandchildren. You know how that goes. So their mindset is, and especially if they're in like a lower middle class, like the lower middle class, or like uh, the low class, or what's the term? I guess the low class, and then the middle class. If they're somewhere between basically the middle class and lower, um, we have to put ourselves in the mindset of that particular person. They're in survival mode. So they're going to do everything they can to take care of their family and to make sure the bills are paid and their business is up and running, and you know, um, they're not behind on any payments. They're trying to make sure they take care of their family, making sure everybody's eating, making sure that there's enough money left behind for the kids and the grandkids. And so that particular person who just so happens to be non-black, it's not their main priority is not, oh, what can I do for the black community? How can I donate? How can I contribute? How can I invest? That person's mind, especially if they're in the lower or middle class, they're not thinking, oh, what can I do to give all my money to black people? No. And who can blame them? I know that if I was non-black, I would not be thinking about black people and how to invest money towards their community. I would not be thinking about that, not because I'm a racist, but because my interests, lie on my family, my legacy, my people. And who can blame anybody for that? I don't blame the Arabs for doing that. I don't blame white people for doing that. I don't blame Hispanic people for doing that, or Indians, Native Americans. I don't blame them for looking out for their family, because that's their family, that's their culture. And the point that I'm trying to make is that, we need to be thinking that. We need to be thinking like that. We need to be looking out for our own people, for self. It's okay to be self-centered. It's okay to be a little selfish as long as it's healthy. No one's expecting you to ignore your family's needs in order to, take care of another person. But we black people, we do it all the time. We expect other people to do it, or we don't expect, that's what I meant to say. We don't expect other people to do it, but yet we do it to each other. When some other race of people says, oh, well, I got to take care of my family, or my daughter's at home and I got to go pick her up and blah, 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 we're quick to be like, oh, okay, yeah, go ahead and go do it. But if one of our own comes inside the store and says, hey, I got to pick my daughter up from school, she's been waiting, she's by herself, blah, 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 we'll be quick to try to tear that person down. And I'm addressing this because, this type of behavior within the black community, it's bullshit, first of all. It's bullshit. And this is exactly why we don't ever prosper or make it. Because, we sabotage each other. We would never treat another race of people like that. Like I said, if it was another race of people that came inside a store that they were working at and said, hey, I got to leave 5 minutes early, I got to pick my little daughter up from school, we'll let them go. We'd be like, oh, well, if you need any help, let me know. Your car breaks down, we'll come visit and help you. We're overextending ourselves to a race of people that are not even our own, that would not do that for us. I'm just gonna be flat out honest about it. But if one of our own comes inside the store and says, okay, it's been time for me to clock out. I was supposed to leave about 30 minutes to about an hour ago. I gotta pick my baby up from school. I gotta get going. Then it's, oh, well, where do you think you're going? If you leave, I'm firing you. If you leave, I'll give you a write-up. If you leave, I'm docking your pay. But it's like, but ma'am, I was supposed to clock out like 2 hours ago and my daughter's waiting for me at school. I don't understand why you're keeping me here against my will. Oh, because you black and you one of my own and I don't want you to outshine me because it makes me feel insecure. Ultimately, that's why we do that to each other. And it looks bad. Like, I mean, I have to be the one, the bearer of bad news. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but when we treat each other like that and other races of people see that, like, it looks bad. Like, it's gotten to the point where I can no longer go on life not saying anything about that because it's bullshit. You know, when we treat each other like that and other races of people see that, they don't respect us. They don't. And quite frankly, I don't blame them for being disgusted at how we treat our own people. It disgusts me when I see black people treat each other like that. And I know a lot of times it's not personal. You know, that's coming really from a place of probably trauma and probably some stress at home. You know, and that's understandable, but there's no excuse when you can somehow manage to contain whatever stress or problems you got going on at home for another race of people. But when your own people walk up in the building, you know, you want to use them as a punching bag. That's not okay. If you can conceal your anger when it comes to other races of people, you can conceal your anger when it comes to your own people. Plain and simple. You know, I get fed up of seeing black people tear each other down. Like, it's getting old. It's not cute. It's not funny. Nor has it ever been. And it's getting to a point where other races of people no longer feel comfortable watching us humiliate and break each other down. It just makes them see us as property. It just makes them see us as people people who are undeserving of respect. I'm just gonna keep it real with you. When other races of people see us building together, protecting each other, respecting each other, loving each other, you know, investing in each other, then we can go about demanding respect. But we cannot get respect from the police. We cannot get respect from the government. And we cannot get respect from any other race of people until we learn to respect each other, period. That means not fucking on each other's man or woman, you know, not talking about each other behind their backs, not stealing from each other, not trying to sabotage somebody's success, not trying to stop them from growing, not trying to pull them down and take them down with you, but letting the person that's elevating take you with them. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just things like that that the black community needs to learn in order to prosper. Because if we keep up this whole ego battle thing, I'm just gonna keep it funky. White people are gonna snatch the sound, just like J. Cole said. We sitting here arguing over who got the crown when white people have snatched the sound. Not that I'm saying anything's wrong with that, because at this point, if we black people, if we don't get it together, I will not have a problem with that. At this point, if we ain't gonna do it right, then somebody else is gonna step up to the plate and do it correctly or better than we could ever do it if we don't get over our own egos. You know, and I know that you know, this is tough love, because you know, we've been on this earth way too long to be making up the same excuse. We've been here too long. We've been here too long. The whole reason why we're experiencing the modern day transatlantic slavery is because we screwed each other over. Like, you know, I'm fed up of giving the black community credit where, you know, bullshit needs to be addressed. Like, I understand we do need to come together more than we need to be oppositional to each other. Facts. You know, and ultimately a lot of times when we argue, we're arguing about the same thing. We're literally arguing because we agree with each other. The black community, we're so used to being oppositional to each other that we can't even admit that one another is correct about something, or we can't even admit to each other that we actually agree on the same concept that we're both arguing about. Like that's how, you know, egotistical the black community has gotten. We can't say to each other, I agree to disagree, Or, I agree with you. I think you're right. You know what? You got this one. I lost. I was wrong. We can't say we don't say things like that anymore. And this is exactly why we're in opposition with each other. This is exactly why. And until that changes, we're going to continue to be in opposition with each other. I personally don't think that there's anything wrong with a black person being religious. I don't think there's anything wrong with a black person being gay. I don't think there's anything wrong with a black person being a Republican or conservative or, I don't know, spiritual, whatever beliefs that you have. I personally don't have a problem with it. I don't care, because that doesn't necessarily determine your character, nor does it determine whether or not the black community is going to prosper. But what it does say is how we treat each other despite our differences. How are we going to treat each other when we know we disagree? How are we going to treat each other when we don't like each other? Are we going to show each other respect, when we disagree? This is all stuff that I feel like is worth talking about, because the game is over. It's game over when we control where our money goes. When we control when we control where our money goes, game over. There's nothing else to talk about. There is no white supremacy. If we control where our money goes, where does white supremacy go? I would like for somebody to answer that question. I'll wait. But see, we can't get a hold of our money, and we cannot control our money if we keep robbing each other blind. We cannot control where our money goes if we keep dragging each other down each time one black person is successful. We cannot control where our money goes if we keep sabotaging each other's success. It's not going to work like that. We know that. We've been down this road before. With Mr. Dubois and Mr. Marcus Garvey. Where Mr. Dubois sabotaged Marcus Garvey's career. We don't have to have that. We don't have to keep having the same conversation. Like, we've already had that conversation, and we know where it leads. Crippling the black community. It's just that simple. So what are the methods and the strategies that we could put together in order to uplift the black community and ensure that it's permanent? Well, black codes. If there's any black codes within the system, within the legal system, if we spot any black codes that we know is directed towards black people, whether it's in the bank, whether it's through the bank, whether it's through the mortgage or stockbrokers where they sell houses, if we notice black codes there, if we notice black codes really like through any political or corporate establishment, if we notice that there's any like black codes within their rules and regulations, we could shut that down. And then also another way that we can ensure black people prosper is having each other's backs, meaning that, let's just say, for instance, somebody within the black community decides to sign a record label, but the record label isn't particularly paying this individual. Well, what we need to do as a black community is we need to unify and band together, show up at that record company with some bats in our hands, and let these record company labels know we're not playing about our money. And this just goes for any situation. It doesn't necessarily have to be the music industry. If, say, the corporate decides to blackball one of us, then we all come together and show up at that business establishment with some handy dandy weapons and let them know we're not playing. We ain't got to break nothing. We ain't got to start nothing. We ain't got to scare these people. Just let them know, if you don't give me my money, I'm going to destroy this entire building from the inside out. We're not playing with you no more. You're not going to keep withholding money. You're not going to keep blackballing us. You're not going to keep oppressing us by your black codes. You're going to treat us like people. And that it's no negotiation. And we have to all come together on that. So when they screw one of us over, they screw over the whole community. Okay, like kind of how TLC handled it when they was basically having TLC work like slaves and taking all their money, and then they showed up with some baseball bats to the record company. Yeah, I bet the record company paid them then, because they realized, oh, these people ain't playing about their money, which, you can't blame a greedy person for trying it, right? Greedy people, they do this stuff all the time. But the reason why they get away with stuff like this is because we don't care enough about each other to put a stop to that. So when we black people, when we start to value our own lives on top of valuing each other's lives, then it's going to teach other people, other races of people in business establishments, to honor and respect our boundaries and to honor and respect even each and every one of our lives, because we've been protesting and we've been marching long enough. But I 100% guarantee you that if a police officer shoots an innocent black man and we show up to that police officer's house, now, and I want y'all to listen to me because I'm not playing. If a police officer shoots an innocent black man, imagine if say all it takes is about 5-10 black people show up at that police officer's house, and I promise you, there won't be another shooting ever again. How much you want to bet? I'll put money on it. Let one of these police officers shoot another innocent black man, and then we as a unit go and show up at that police officer's house and get very confrontational. I didn't say physical. I didn't say violent. I said confrontational. I promise you that there won't be no more shootings. You want to know why this keeps happening? Because we're sitting here complaining on the radio station. We're sitting here crying and begging massa not to take no more of our children. And we don't need to be begging for it. Those are concepts that we don't need to be begging for. We shouldn't be begging the police officers that we're all essentially, our tax-paying dollars are going towards their pockets. We shouldn't be begging them for anything. We should be making demands. It's just that simple. Because let one of us from the hood shoot an innocent white person. Let one of us from the hood shoot an innocent Asian person or an innocent Hispanic person. And I bet you the SWAT team will be showing up at our house in 5 minutes or less. How much you want to bet? But see, stuff like this happens because we as